Okay, let's make a start, inshallah. Bismillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-ikhlas fil qawli wal amal. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Jazakumullah khairan for joining me again today. Alhamdulillah, we are today going to complete ayah number 7, inshallah. I'm just going to bring up the part that we did yesterday because it is a continuation. So we did this the larger part of ayah number 7 yesterday. So if we just go over this very quickly, I'm going to say the isti'adha and the basmala first. So Sister Humaira, if you'd like to join me for the isti'adha, please. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
So the dal can be lighter when you say أعوذ, right? Be careful with the dal. And also the other thing is, remember what we said about the ra just sliding the tongue a little bit more closer to the noon. Okay, let's try that again. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
You're still going a little bit too back, but inshallah we'll keep working on this. I just wanted you to repeat for me. أعوذ.
أعوذ.
It's better. It's better than it was. Alhamdulillah. Jazakumullah khairan. Sister Salma, if you like to repeat the basmala with me, please. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Oh, okay. I think she's the connection is a little bit funny for her today. Okay, Sister Humaira, if you'd like to repeat that. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Okay, Jazakumullahu khairan. That's okay. Right. Okay. So we did this part of the ayah, which I will just go over quickly because since the next part is a continuation of this. So we read, وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ فِيكُمْ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ لو يطيعكم في كثير من الأمر لعنتم ولكن الله حبب إليكم الإيمان وزينه في قلوبكم. And then we come to the next part. Just bring it up for you. So this is the part, inshallah, we will be doing today. So we start off with the word وَكَرَّهَ. وَكَرَّهَ. Now we've talked about the waw. We know it's a nice light letter. Whenever you say the waw, we start off with our lips together as a wa. It is as one that does. It is the only letter which will always involve circling of the lips, no matter what haraka, zabr, zir, pesh, fatha, dhamma, kasra it has on it. Okay, so it's always wa. But we complete the movement. Just like you say wa in isolation, you keep the wa. And then we go on to the kaf. Now the kaf, we have discussed the makhraj of the kaf before. If you remember, it's the back of the tongue and it's going where the soft and the hard palate meet. Okay, it's a nice light letter. So you're not going too back. Waka, waka, okay? Wakaraha. So today I want to talk a little bit about the ra. Okay, I want to give you the makhraj of the ra, which I don't think we've done in detail in this series. So let's make a start on that, inshallah. So the letter ra. How do you pronounce the letter ra correctly? Now, often what happens is sisters think that the Arabic ra is very similar to an equivalent that they have in their own language. So, for example, in English, we have the R. In Urdu, I think we have re. So in some of the other languages, we do have what we think are equivalents, but actually they're not the same as the Arabic ra. They are a little bit different. If you imagine saying, for example, in English, when we say red, rainbow, rules, rights, if you even just say R, and if you kind of hold the R and think about how you're pronouncing that, okay? So if I kind of like give you an indication of what you're actually doing, first of all, you're using the part of the tongue that is touching the upper palate is just this part. Now, remember, this is not the makhraj of the Arabic ra, I'm telling you what you're doing when you say the English R. Okay, so when you say the English R, you're just using this very tip of the tongue. Okay, and you probably feel like you're curling it, so it's probably going a bit like this at the front, right? So the tip is kind of curling like that. Okay, and it's probably going, and it's probably touching somewhere. If this is the upper palate, it's probably going somewhere around. Get my pen. Somewhere around. Let me see where I'm going. They're probably going around here somewhere. This kind of region. Okay, quite back. That's not how we say the Arabic ra. Okay, it's very, in fact, the Arabic ra is quite different to that. And so often what people are doing, they're trying to pronounce the ra as they do the English, and then it doesn't sound the same. Okay, kind of. And if somebody heard you, they would know that you're a foreigner because your ra would sound very different. Okay, it wouldn't be the proper ra. How do we pronounce the proper ra? Well, first of all, we need to know, okay, we know that the tongue is touching the upper palate. We know that, okay? We then got to fine tune and know which part of the tongue and where exactly is it going on the upper palate, okay? Now, in the Arabic definition for the makhraj of the ra, the phrase طرف اللسان is used. طرف اللسان, which means the front or the tip. It's not just the tip of the tongue, because in English, when we say tip, we always mean, it means the very tip, right? But طرف اللسان doesn't mean just this. طرف اللسان means this, and it also means the front part. In other words, the top surface too. Not a lot of it. You're not going all the way back here, for example, but it's here. It's you're using the top side and the tip. So here's the tip. You're using the tip. Let me do it where, if I use my scarf as a background, it's easier to see. So you're using, this is the tip. This is the top of the tip. Okay. You're using this part too. Okay. You're using this part too. And this is the part we don't use when we say the English R. Okay, when we say the English R, we only use this part. So this time we got to get this involved. So this has to press at the top too. Okay. Secondly, you're not curling the tongue. Okay. You're not actually going like this. This movement is not happening with the tongue. Okay. In fact, all you are doing with the tongue, because if you go like this, you're making just the tip touch the top. So the top surface, just put that down. The top surface, which is like that part, remember, of the tongue, the top surface, that part can't actually come into contact with anything if you're curling it. Okay, so you've got to kind of keep your tongue flat, and it's just raising like this. That's the kind of movement that's going on. Okay, so you're not actually going like this with the tongue. Okay, so we now know how the tongue is moving. We know which part has to press at the top. Where is it going? Well, Dr. Ayman Swaid mentions that the ra, the makhraj of the ra, is very close or just behind the noon. Okay, now the makhraj of the noon, and the word litha is mentioned. So if this is my upper palate, and I look at the top two teeth, okay, the incisors, what you find is in between the top two incisors, you have this gum part, which is like in between. That's called the litha. Okay, that's where the noon is. That's where we go for the noon. The tip of the tongue touches that part for the noon. And for the ra, you're not going there. You're going just behind it, just there. So you're not going too back. You're closer to the noon. Okay, you're closer to the noon, but you're just a little bit behind it. Okay, and it is mentioned in this is mentioned in Dr. Ayman Swaid how it is close to the makhraj of the noon. Okay, so what's happening is really the tongue is just lifting from the top, from the front. Oh, let me show you with my model again. The tongue just lifts like this. Let's get this going. Right. So all you're doing is you lift the tongue like this. It's just straight up, straight down, straight up, behind the teeth, straight down, straight up, straight down. There's no curling. It's just straight up, straight down, the tip of the tongue, right? And we've got to remember that it's the top side. You've got to get this part of the tongue also to press at the top, not just this part. Okay, you've got to get that part too. Okay, that part has to be touching, or you're pressing with that part. When you say, not pressing, actually, pressing is not the right word here, but you're touching with that part. And when we say the ra, it's not, this is where you've got to have somebody listen to you to correct you on a one-to-one level. But once you've got that established, you want to you got to get the pressure right. So it's almost like a fine balance. You don't want to press too hard, but then you don't want to be too light, but you are a bit light because the sound has to pass. If your tip of the tongue, if the tip of the tongue is pressing really hard, the sound can't pass through that gap. And that's quite special for the ra. For the ra, the way that the tongue comes up, the sound actually has to pass through a gap between the tip of the tongue and the upper palate. So if you press too hard, you'll say wakar, you can't just stop the sound of the voice because you've blocked everything. Okay. So yes, the tip of the tongue goes up. It's a lighter touch. It's not too hard, so that the sound can keep passing. Okay. So when we say wakarraha, Sister Salma, would you like to try that? Wakarraha.
وكرها
Yes, mashallah, good. We'll try it one more time. Wakarraha.
وكرها
Not bad, mashallah. Good. Alhamdulillah, barakallah fiki. Now, when we say the ra, we have here, because of the mushaddad ra, because it has a shadda on it, we're joining, we have two ras. Okay, both of them are going to be heavy. And the first ra that we join, when we say wakar, this one, when we say that one, it is a bayniya letter. So it's one that we don't rush, we don't cut it too short, and again, we don't stay on it too long. We don't say wakar, we just say wakarra, wakarra. You stay on it for a bit, and then you move on to the fatha. Okay, wakarraha. Okay, I hope that's made sense to everyone. If you do have any questions regarding the ra, please feel free to ask. You can either ask in the chat or you can ask in the Telegram group. And I will get back to you, inshallah, as soon as possible, if I can answer the question, inshallah. Okay. Then we have the next part, ilaykumul kufra. Ilaykum, we have seen this word before, ilaykum. Remember what I said about the lam and the ya, and the way that you make sure you don't say ilay, for example. Ila, pronounce the lay, lay. Then join with the ya. The ya we said is a rakhawa letter, so you keep it going for a bit. Ilaykum. Okay. And then we have the kum. Here we have kumu again because of iltiqa as-sakinin. For those of you that are familiar with that, but the meme then joins with the lam. Ilaykumul. Okay, the lam again is a tawassut or a bayniya letter, just like the ra. So you know how long you spend on the ra when you join and you say wakarraha. Here we say ilaykumul kumul. You hold the lam for the same amount of time. It's again not too long, not too short. Okay. Remember the kaf, what we said about the kaf. We have a kaf over here. We have another kaf over here. We have another one over here. All three of these are from the same makhraj. So make sure you are going to the same place every time. It's very easy sometimes to shift and go a little bit too back and say, for example, al-kufra, right? You don't say kuku, you want to say ku, al-kufra. And also you don't want to say ko, you want to say ku. Al-kufra, al-kufra, not al-kufra, for example. Same with ilaykum. You don't want to be saying ilaykumul, right? You want to say ilaykumul, ku, ilaykumul, kumul, the u sound. Okay, you need that matching. Kumu. Let's try it till there onto the screen. I hope you're ready, inshallah. وَكَرَّهَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْكُفْرَ.
وكره إليكم الكفر.
That's not bad, Auntie, mashallah. Well done. What I want you to do, Auntie, is your ha, when you said وَكَرَّهَ, your ha was a little bit extended. And I think it was because maybe you were thinking about what's coming next. So you ended up hanging on to the ha for a little bit longer than you should. So keeping it one count. So remember, when you say ra, وَكَرَّهَ, the ra is one count. Same amount of time for the ha. وَكَرَّهَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْكُفْرَ.
وكره إلى I know how to prolong it. وكره إليكم الكفر.
MashaAllah, very good, Auntie. Well done, alhamdulillah. You fixed it very well, alhamdulillah. Now, when we stop normally, I just want to just make you all aware that when we do stop, of course, here, if I was to stop, the better way to stop is just actually stop the proper way and put a sukoon on the ra and say, وَكَرَّهَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْكُفْرَ. Okay, I'm not stopping just because I want you to practice, because we will be reading this in continuation when we put it together. I want you to get used to saying the Raza Fatha, because we won't be stopping here when we read this part of the ayah in continuation. Okay, but the more correct way, the better way, the way that we stop normally on a word is to put a sukoon on the last letter. Okay. Then we have here wal fusuqa. Well, again, well. We had ilaykumul over here. We have well, again, this joining lam. Same amount of time for both, nice and light. Ilaykumul. And here we have well. So you hold them both the same, nice and light lam. Be careful not to say wal, wa. Okay, you don't want to be saying wa, you want to say wa. So wa, notice how your lips come back. Wa, wa. Do that even if you're joining with the lam. Well, not wal, wa. See, my lips not coming all the way back. So complete the movement for the wow. That will also help you, one, to make the wow light, and it will also help you make the lam lighter too. Okay. We then have wal fusuqa. Wal fusuqa. Now remember, for the fa, we said I've given you the makhraj of the fa. We said it's the inner part of the bottom lips, the wet part, and it touches the bottom edge of the upper two incisors, right? Well fu, suqa. We are going to stay in that dhamma, the circling of the lips position when we say fusu, okay, fusu, to make sure that they are, because we need the oo sound for both. The danger is sometimes with some sisters, what happens is when they start off a letter with a dhamma, they say well fu. When they then try to stay there for the su, sometimes the scene can become heavy. So you got to be careful about this, because scene can very easily, especially when it has a dhamma or a pesh on it, very easily can become a sad. Be careful not to say well fu su. You want to say su. You want to keep it nice and light for scene. It's only when it becomes heavy that it becomes a sad. So if you can try to keep the sound light by keeping the back of the tongue very relaxed down, don't let the back of the tongue push backwards or become tense or move up in any way. Keep it relaxed. Well, fu, just how you say fu, the back of the tongue is relaxed. Make sure there's no movement at the back as you shift from the fa to the sin. Let's try that, Sister Humera. Wal fusuqa.
Wal fusuqa.
Yes, mashallah, good. And your qaf, mashallah, the makhraj is good, alhamdulillah. So for the qaf, we have also mentioned the makhraj of the qaf. Now this is the time where you're changing makhraj now. So we had the 3 kafs before. So I mentioned we had the kaf here at the beginning. We have another kaf here with ilaykum. Then we have al-kufr. All 3 of these are the same. But this one, now that we're talking about the qaf, is further back. Remember, we talked about the back of the tongue moving upwards, diagonally upwards, towards the close to the, like just in front of the uvula, and you kind of press there. Wal fusuqa. It's a heavy letter, so it's not going to be ka. It's going to be qa. This time, the back of the tongue will get involved. The back of the tongue will be elevating a little bit. It will be pushing back a little bit, and the direction of the voice is diagonally in the mouth. Okay, towards the, where the incisors are, just behind the upper incisors. So you're not going to direct the voice so it comes straight out the mouth. Remember, we talked about the sound not coming straight out the mouth like this, but it's going to come like, it's going to be diagonal, like, can you even see that? My face in the, like that. Okay, it's going to be just behind the upper two incisors. So I mentioned that in a previous session. Okay, so it's qa, but be careful not to prolong it. We don't want to say wal fusuqa, because the su part has been extended. The su is 2 counts, right? Because of the mad waw, but the qaf is not. The qaf is only 1 count. So after extending the su, you come back to a 1 count qa. Wal fusuqa, wal fusuqa. One more time, Sister Humera.
Wal fusuqa.
It's a little bit long. Wal fusuqa.
Wal fusuqa.
Be careful not to say for, though. Your dhamma on the fa is starting to slip a little bit. Wal fusuqa.
Wal fusuqa.
Better, jazakumullahu khairan. Then we have the next part. Okay, let's do it actually till there. Sister Salma, if you'd like to join me from the beginning up until this part. وكره إليكم الكفر والفسوق.
وكره إليكم الكفر والفسوق.
Good. Alhamdulillah. The ra in al-kufra, this ra here can be a little bit heavier.
Yeah.
It was a little bit on the light side. The first ra, mashallah, in karraha, that was fine. But the next one in al-kufr. So let's try that one more time, and I'll give another opportunity for those of you at home to also repeat. وَكَرَّهَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْكُفْرَ وَالْفُسُوقَ.
وكره إليكم الكفر والفسوق.
MashaAllah, well done. Barakallah feeku. Good, alhamdulillah. And then we have again well, so the joining of the wow with the lam, remembering to keep the wow and the lam both are light letters, so making sure that you complete the wa movement, bring your lips back. Now remember, when I say bring your lips back, I don't mean bring them back and over exaggerate it and bring it back as much as you can. So it's not like wa, for example, overdoing it, right? It's just wa, wa, wa. However much feels natural, however much you come back to get the ah sound, you keep that for well, okay? Then we have the next part, which is we have the ayn, which we know comes from, if you can remember at home, try to see if you can remember which part of the throat was the ayn from. Was it the top, middle, or bottom? It was from the middle. Okay, the ayn is from the middle. And we squeeze a little bit. Wal-i. Okay, if you're not sure about where the I comes from, he, remember it's the same place as ha, the ha. So if you can say the ha, that comes to you more easily, say he, press, squeeze in the same place, and then say I. Wal-hi, wal-i, wal-i. This will help you to identify the makhraj and make sure you're at the right place. The ayn does have a kasra, so we have to make sure we say I and not a. Okay, I, wal-i, wal-i. The ayn is then joined with the sad. The sad is a heavy letter. Remember, we talked about the sad before. It has it's an isti'ala letter. It's also a letter that has itbaq, so it has an extra heaviness, which means now the direction of the sound is more vertical. It's more towards the middle of the upper palate. Okay, so here you are going to and it has rakhawa as well, so we're going to prolong this letter longer than we do the lam. Okay, wal-is, wal-is. So you stay on the sad a little bit longer than you do the lam. Okay, and then we have, but once you've made the sad heavy and you've stayed on it, light, yeah. Okay, you've got to make that transition from heavy and then back to not. So you don't want to say wal-is, ya, not ya, yeah, nice and light. Okay, at the end. Let's try this, Sister Salma. Wal-isyan.
والعصيان.
Let's try that again. Wal-isyan.
والعصيان. Sorry. والعصيان.
Good, mashallah, jazakumullahu khairan. And when we do stop on the noon, of course, just a reminder that we are putting a sukoon on the noon, and therefore the noon is a tawassut letter, just like the lam, not too long, not too short. So stay on it enough so that we can, it can be heard clearly, inshallah. Okay, let's try this part of the ayah up until here, inshallah. So Auntie Nasreen, if you'd like to join me first. وكره إليكم الكفر والفسوق والعصيان. You're on mute, Auntie.
وكره إليكم الكفر والفسوق والعصيان. والعصيان.
The ayn is good, alhamdulillah. The ya you've made lighter as well. The sad sounds a little bit like a sin, Auntie. So we just need to work on that sad. Remember, after saying a, and when you get to the sad, you will notice that. Remember, for heavy letters, the back of the tongue has to lift and push a bit back. So you want to be doing that for the sad. Also, just be careful, Auntie. So that's one thing that I want you to think about. And the other one is the ra here. Just making sure that we don't make this ra too long again. Okay, so I'll repeat that again, and let's think about those two things as well. But mashallah, the rest of it, mashallah, you're doing very well, alhamdulillah. Jazakumullahu khairan. Let's try that again. وكره إليكم الكفر والفسوق والعصيان.
وكره إليكم الكفر والفسوق والعصيان. والعصيان والعصيان.
Yes, it is. This is something. So even for those of you at home, I'm sure there's many more sisters who are also having to repeat and thinking, oh no, that hasn't come out right. And they're probably doing it just like you did, Auntie. And that's fine because sometimes certain things do take practice. This is something which can be a little bit challenging. So if you are finding it challenging, don't worry, just keep practicing. It's not something you can, for a lot of sisters, when they try to apply this correctly the first time, it normally takes a few goes. So be patient with yourself. Remember we have the ain, which is can be a challenging letter from the middle of the throat. You have the sad, and then you have the switching from a heavy to a light. Yeah, but not bad, Auntie. Auntie, I would like you to practice this in your own time as well. There are you still have a tendency to want to stay on the ra, so just be careful with that. In the word al-kufra, that one. Okay, alhamdulillah. Let's move on to the next bit. Then we have the أولئك Sister Salma.
أولئك.
Good, mashallah. So here we have a longer mad in the lam, and this is what we call mad wajib muttasil, and it is 4 to 5 counts. Okay, so some teachers will do it for 4 counts, some will do it for 5. Both are correct. Okay, the waw. Remember this waw I mentioned before. We do not read this waw. Okay, this is there for another reason. It's not there to be pronounced. So the hamza is actually just 1 count. We say ula, not ula. Okay, ulaika. Then we have the next part, humur rashidun. We have hu, mu. The ha we've discussed is from the bottom of the throat, so you don't need to squeeze, nice and relaxed. Hu. The mu is from the lips, so you feel the lips coming together. You push out, mu, hu, mu. The mu is then joined with the ra, and this ra is heavy, just like in the beginning when we saw in wakarraha. We say humur rashidun. Okay, the ra is both ra's are heavy. The main difference here is the ra, this one has this mad alif with it. So when we pronounce it with a fatha, we then prolong it for 2 counts. Humur rashidun. If you can try that, Sister Humaira.
Humur rashidun.
Yes, your ra's are getting there, definitely. Alhamdulillah. You just need to keep. I know sometimes it takes time, and sometimes we keep going back to our old way. You're definitely on the right lines. So keep going with that, inshallah. Okay, and then finally we have the she. Make sure we say she and not she. Make sure you're saying the kasra. And then we have the dal here. Be careful not to make this dal heavy. It's easy to do with the dhamma. It's easy to say ar-rashidun, do. It sounds a bit heavy. Do, nice and light. Okay. One way you can fix that is using a narrower part of the tongue to press. Don't use such a spread out part. When you use the tip of the tongue to press at the top, don't use such a wide area. So often sisters will use like all of this section to press at the top. Don't do that. Press with just that part, a narrower part. Okay, when you say the dal. Okay, let's try this all together. Sister Humaira. Ulaika humur rashidun.
Ulaika humur rashidun.
Not bad, jazakumullahu khairan. Let's go back and say it from the beginning. Sister Zuleika, would you like to join me for that one?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's start from the first part that's on the screen. I don't want to say beginning. I'm avoiding saying beginning of the ayah because the beginning of the ayah is not even here, so it was done previously. So from what you can see on the screen. وَكَرَّهَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْكُفْرَ وَالْفُسُوقَ وَالْعِصْيَانَ.
وكره إليكم الكفر والفسوق والعصيان.
Not bad, barakallahu fiki. The only thing I would say here is your qaf in wal fusuq can be a little bit heavier. We'll try that again just from wal fusuq. Wal fusuq wal isyan.
والفسوق والعصيان.
Okay, so we know that this qaf, first of all, because of the fatha, it is one of the higher levels. For those of us that know about the levels of heaviness, it's one of the higher levels of heaviness, which is why we've got to just pay a little bit more attention to it. For the opinion of Ibn Tahan is level 1, and for Imam Ibn al-Jazari, it's level 2. Both are still very high though. So all you need to make sure is when you say the qa, try when you let go of the makhraj of the qaf, try not to, because when you let go, sometimes you can come low a bit too much. So when you let go of the qaf, try to just move away, but try to stay still close to the qaf. Okay, because remember, we want the tongue to be elevated at the back. So let's try it on its own first. Qa. Yes, this is good. Now this is the same one I want in the word. Wal fusuqa.
والفسوق.
This is much better. This is much better. Barakallahu fiki. Jazakumullah khairan. And the last part, inshallah. Ulaika humur rashidun.
أولئك هم الراشدون.
Not bad, alhamdulillah. That was good. Your mud, when you say the mud wow can be lighter. So instead of saying ar-rashidun, the sound seems to be staying very much at the back. Doon. To make the mud wow lighter, remember, because we say that the mud letters are produced from the jawf, right? The empty space, but you want the sound to still travel forward. So you don't want the sound to just linger at the back of the throat. You want it to move forward. So instead of saying do, we're saying do, do. A little bit lighter, right? Let's try this one again. Ar-rashidun.
الراشدون.
If you try saying, let's try it on its own first. If you just say ooh,
Ooh.
yes, this is good, right? So now I'm going to make you say it again and then add the do. So ooh, so the way you say ooh, I want the same ending on the dal. Ooh, do.
Ooh, do.
MashaAllah, this is better. Ar-rashidun.
الراشدون.
Yes, mashallah. Allah bless you. That was very good.
That
Alhamdulillah.
was so cool how you did that. Allahumma barik.
Alhamdulillah. Just inshallah, you know what? It's a technique. You know what? Allah bless my teachers, because my teachers are the ones who really have guided me and helped me. And of course, before the teachers, Allah. But you know, may Allah keep using us to help. There is dua, Allahumma sta'amilna wa la tastabdilna, that Allah keeps using us so that we are beneficial to the people. But this is now something you can apply whenever you do any mud. You can check yourself by saying it in isolation first and then adding the letter and then putting it into the word. So step by step normally works. Okay, inshallah, I have gone a little bit over time. Let's stop there, inshallah. Jazakumullahu khairan. See you all tomorrow. Please stay tuned for Sister Zuleika's tafsir session, which is going to start in a few moments, inshallah. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.